Hello, I'm Helen from Journal with Purpose and welcome to my latest YouTube video. Today I'm going to be covering 5 things that you could write about in your journal, and I'm going to be working in my dotted moleskin notebook. I've only just started this one and I recently released a flip through of my latest completed creative journal. So I'm going to be talking later on about the 5 things that I really like to write about and get great value from writing about in my journals. Now, I want to create 5 writing spots and I'm going to be using stenciling for my background. So I've got a spare piece of dotted paper and I'm going to start off with this left-hand page, and I just want to make sure that my pieces that I'm using for masking are smaller than the width of the page. So I think I'm going to go for about 9 centimetres wide. And about, I think about 8 centimetres deep, and you can just alter yours to match the height and width of your journal page. So I'm just going to check how that looks on the page, and I'm quite happy with that, so I'm going to do 2 of this size and then cut them both out. So now I'm just going to check that I'm happy with the sizes for these, and I am. I think that's going to give me some nice writing spots. So I've got some really skinny washi tape here, and I'm going to use these just to temporarily fix these to my page. You want ideally a kind of low tack washi for this, so I'm just folding it back on itself to create almost like a double-sided sticky tape. I'm going to put some at the top and some on the bottom on both pieces. If you find that your washi tape's a bit too sticky, you could try just tapping it against your clothing to pick up some of the fibres a little bit, and just make sure that they don't stick too firmly to your page, because we want to be able to remove these later on. I really like to create writing spots on my pages. I find it just makes them really welcoming and kind of encourages me to write on them. So now I've got that on, I'm going to just turn this over and decide where I want to place it on my page, and then do the same with this one up here. So I now want to do some stenciling on this left-hand page. I've got my Circles in Motion stencil from my product range, and I'm going to be using Distress Oxide in Shaded Lilac and Bundled Sage. So I'm going to pop a spare piece of paper under here, and I'm just going to cover up this right-hand page for now as well. And then I've got the 2 different ink blending tools with the sponges on. And I'm now going to just start off adding this ink through the stencil and just taking it over the edge of the masking sheets that we've added. You could definitely do just one colour if you like, but I always think it looks really pretty if you've got a couple of different colours down there. So I'm just adding some areas with the green ink, and then I'll swap over and do the other areas in the blue ink. So I'm just going to spend a quick minute finishing off the stenciling on this left-hand page. Now that that's done, I'm going to remove the stencil and then gently peel away these masking shapes. Another tip with washi tape is if you're finding it is sticking a little bit to the paper underneath, if you've got a heat tool or hairdryer, you could try just warming it ever so slightly and encouraging that glue to release off of the shapes. So we've now got 2 writing spots, so I want to create 3 for the other page. So I'm going to use 2 rectangles, but I'm going to trim these down slightly. And I also then want to have a circle to go on kind of in the middle. So I've got a compass here. So I'm just going to draw out the size of circle that I want. And now I'm going to cut that out and also just trim down the size of those other 2 rectangles a little bit so that I've got space for all 3 on my right hand page. So they're now looking about the right size, so I'm going to re-add the 2 bits of tape that I took off to trim them down. I'm going to add 1 inside that circle as well. And then I'm going to just turn these over, press them down, and again just add my stenciling around all of the elements. I absolutely love how quick and easy that background came together. And I now just want to add another couple of decorative elements before I get into my journal writing. I've got this lovely tape here. It's La Dolce Vita, and I got mine from Miso Paper. And so I'm just going to cut out some of these elements and just use them to kind of overlap a little bit where some of the boxes are. So I'm just going to loosely lay them down for a moment until I decide exactly where I want them. You certainly don't need to do any of the creative elements. For me, it's one of my really relaxing parts of the journaling process, but of course that's definitely optional. Okay, so I'm nearly there with those. So I might have that overlapping those 2 and then those 2 over on that side. I really like creating journal spreads that bring lots of colour to my pages but aren't necessarily too difficult to get added, so they don't take too long. Okay, so I'm really happy with how that's looking. And the final thing I'm going to do before I get writing is just add a dotted outline around the outside of where the ink marks are. Again, entirely optional. I just really like that effect where you're kind of creating that border. And I'm using a black Muji gel pen for this. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes adding in all of those frames. Okay, I'm now going to add my heading to my first box, and I'm using a Tombow Fudnosuke brush pen with a firm nib. And the first thing that I absolutely love to journal about is the things that I'm grateful for. And the 5 things that I'm going to be covering in this video, you could do them as a daily spread, a weekly spread, whatever you've got time for in your journals. And you could do a layout like this, or you could incorporate it into however you already do your journaling. So I'm going to spend a few minutes now just jotting down the things that I'm grateful for. And I think it's really good to think about your day as a whole, what you experienced when you first woke up, what you saw when you looked out the window, and really just try and tune your mind to focus on the really good things. For this next box, I'm going to write the heading best parts, and you could take that to mean best parts of the day, best parts of the week, or even the month. Again, it's just thinking back, it might be useful to look through your journal or planner, whatever you use, and just remind yourself of some of the things that have happened recently, and take a few moments to document the best parts. This next section is one of my absolute favourites, and you've probably seen me talk about it in other videos before, but I think it's so important. And this is where I want you to be proud of yourself. You'll notice that I tend to keep my pages quite positive, and that's not because there aren't any negatives in my life or that I'm ignoring them. In fact, I actually journal about some of those and get it all out of my system. But I really like to try and encourage my mind and outlook to be as positive as possible, and creating pages like this really helps me. So I'd love you to spend a couple of minutes thinking about the things that you've done, and they don't have to be big things at all. Could be little challenges you've overcome, small changes you've made, anything like that, and just document the things that you can be proud of yourself for. For this next little section, I'm going to write the word noticed. And this is where I'm going to encourage you to have a curious mind and just think about any changes perhaps you've noticed over the last day or so, week, month, whichever works for you. I find that the things that I notice around me are often the things that I then share in my journal pages. They're interesting things to write about, they're interesting things to kind of show in my creativity, whether it might be things that I sketch, the colours I use, anything like that. So I'm just going to write a few little notes here about some changes that I've seen outside recently. In in this final box, I'm going to write the word intentions. And so this is different to my goals. It's perhaps more about my mindset, how I want to feel, how I want to be and live. So it's kind of a softer way of looking at those goals. You maybe will be thinking more about some habits or how you interact with others, the good things that you do for yourself every day to look after your self-care. So that's what I'm going to write about in here. That is my journal writing now all added. I really hope that you found this helpful. I often get asked how I always find so much to write about, and a lot of my journal pages will be kind of on one of these 5 topics. So it could often I'll write a whole double page spread on things that I'm grateful for or best parts of days, something that's really inspired me that I've noticed, what my intentions are for moving forwards. So you can expand or shrink on these in any ways that you like. I'm thinking of filming another video about how to deepen your gratitude practice in your journal, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. But also just leave me a comment and let me know what you think. As always, I'd love to say a massive thank you to everybody who's joined me over on Patreon. Well, thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you're doing really well. I look forward to speaking with you really soon in my next video.